Hi, everybody. Welcome to the QB School. I'm JT O'Sullivan. Today, we are talking illegal formations. What are they? Where do teams live on the edge? What are the differences in level of football? We are diving into all of it. Let's get it started. Welcome to the QB School. So the idea for this video came from C Moore 97. Great video, JT, as usual. Could someone explain to me the basics of an illegal formation? I never really understood it and don't know why it's a thing. It seems to me like it's just limiting the creativity for potential receivers. Could be a good topic for a video, JT. Just saying. I agree. It definitely does limit the creativity for receivers, but I think that working towards fairness in the game, it definitely makes it fair for the defense to know who is eligible, who can catch a pass, and we're going to do our best here to talk about what the basics of what an illegal formation looks like. And really, to know what an illegal formation is, you have to know what a legal formation is. And so what I try to do in this channel, the best that I possibly can, is to describe things as kind of concise and precise as I possibly can. Now, this gets a little bit muddy really quickly because, like many things in football, American football, they're different at different levels. So whether you're watching the NFL, the NCAA, or high school football, there will be different rules for many things in tackle football. Illegal formations specifically have different rules, or really legal formations at different levels of football have different rules. So when they clash, I'll do my best to point them out. But to understand what an illegal formation is, you first have to know what a legal formation is. And again, this is not a in-depth dive for officials that will go, 4 hours with 200 PowerPoint slide examples. This is a basic understanding. So yes, I know that there are little tweaks and nuances across the board, but as far as a basic understanding, we are looking at 7 people on the line of scrimmage. Okay, 7 people on the line of scrimmage. 4 people can be in the backfield. Don't have to be. A minimum of 7 people on the line of scrimmage. Now, of those 7 people, 5 of them in most normal down and distances have to have ineligible numbers. So that is 50 to 79. Now, most oftentimes, those are the 5 offensive linemen, usually right next to the ball. Usually. So again, 7 people minimum at the line of scrimmage. 5 ineligible with ineligible numbers, at least 5. You could have 10. You could have, the minimum is 5. Then in the NFL, you must have eligible receivers, so 1 through 49, or I don't know if it's 0 through 49 now, and 80 through 99 on the edges of those formations. So that means bookended on both sides of the ball in the NFL, you must have an eligible wide receiver on the line of scrimmage. Now, in college football, high school football, that is not the case. That's when we start getting really blurry and start talking 0x4, 0x5 formations. Okay, so let me walk that back one more time. The essence, the basics. 7 people on the line of scrimmage, 4 people in the backfield. Depending on what level of football you're at, you need to potentially have an eligible on each side of the formation if you're in the NFL. If you're not in the NFL, you just need 7 people on the line of scrimmage. The numbers matter. You must have 5 from 50 to 79. Those are ineligible. They cannot go downfield and catch a pass. Now, just because you have an eligible number, you can be ineligible too. And we'll talk about what that looks like. But the basics, the gist of it, is you are looking for 7 people on the line of scrimmage, 4 people in the backfield. If you understand that rule in and of itself, you're good to go. Now, it definitely gets blurry really quickly with all these spread formations. And a lot of coaches get paid a lot of money to come up with creative ways to put a lot of stress on a defense. Because if you know the defense's rules, you can know how they can have potential issues lining up to certain things. So how you get there, how you construct those 7 people on the line of scrimmage and 4 people in the backfield can get really multiple really quickly. So we're going to look at some examples here to start with, some really clean examples. And then we'll get blurrier and blurrier and more confusing and more confusing. But at the end of the day, if you realize that it is for most cases, a basic understanding. 7 people on the line of scrimmage. Depending on what level you're at, you need to have an eligible receiver on the bookend, on the outside edges of the formation, and then 4 people in the backfield. Now, it can be more than 7 at the line of scrimmage, but it cannot be more than 4 in the backfield. All right, let's look at some examples. So the first formation example we're looking at is Iowa State. Now, easy to see. 5 offensive linemen. 1, 2 eligible receivers on the line of scrimmage. 7 people on the line of scrimmage. 1, 2, 3, 4 people in the backfield. We are rolling. 7 on the line of scrimmage. Eligible. 4 in the backfield, all eligible as well. So just a simple example from a spread look of a legal formation. Next example here is from UNC. A little bit more condensed of a formation, but again, really quickly, easy to see. The 5 offensive linemen on the line of scrimmage, eligible. 4 in the backfield. We're starting to get a really clean, easy look, basic understanding of what a legal formation is. This next example is from Coastal Carolina, BYU. Again, should be really easy to see. Put this one on here. I think it's a lot easier to see when it's on a line, so you can see exactly who's on the line of scrimmage. So, on the line of scrimmage, 5 offensive linemen, 4 backs in the backfield. Now, one thing that does start to creep into football, especially depending on what type of system you're in, is creeping these tackles back and back to create more depth for the pass set. So these 5 have to be on the line of scrimmage. There's a bunch of rules as far as where their feet, head placement are compared to the adjacent offensive linemen. But let's just operate under the assumption that the 5 offensive linemen are always on the line of scrimmage. And then from there, here. Now an example, and we'll start to see when we start talking 0x4 stuff, is you start seeing people get real creative with their shifts, their motions. So theoretically, let's just bump this receiver off the line of scrimmage because we're in college. Now, one of these wide receivers up top jumps onto the line of scrimmage. So now he's on the line of scrimmage. So he is now ineligible, right? He's covered up because this wide receiver is outside of him on the line of scrimmage. You can only have the outside wide receiver being eligible. So that's what a covered up looks like, and I'll show some examples of it later in the video. Another very clean example of a spread formation on the line of scrimmage. So again, the ball, you can see the ball right there. We're on the line of scrimmage. Not that clean, but we're on the line of scrimmage there. And usually there's some variation of communication with the line judge as far as being able to, or the linesman, making sure that you're on the line of scrimmage there. So on the line of scrimmage, 4 in the backfield, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the backfield, 5 offensive line. Again, you can start to see some of these tackles start creeping back a little bit. Again, referees will usually warn them, then give them a penalty as far as creeping back. But at the end of the day, again, it's 1, 5, 6, 7, 4 in the backfield. Easy. Now, the formations we've shown previously were pretty normal, I would say standard operating procedures for most offenses. When you start getting into quads, what I consider 4 eligibles to one side, you start putting a lot of stress on a defense, start putting some stress on some officiating to know exactly who's who in the zoo and where your eligibles are. But again, just a quick look at this formation. On the line of scrimmage, 5 offensive linemen. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the backfield. Legal formation. Again, just because they put 4 eligibles into the boundary, went straight FIB on us, realize they're doing that because they understand the rules of what this defense is trying to do. And you don't have to be a math genius to do the math down here outside the tackle to realize that the offense has got pretty good numbers. So again, doesn't matter how you line up, as long as it's 7 on the line of scrimmage, 4 in the backfield, 7 on the line of scrimmage minimum. Next example here is an example of just what most people refer to as a bunch look, but again, should be really easy to see. This is about as clean as it gets. 1, 5 offensive linemen. There's your 7th on the line of scrimmage, right down the line. I mean, a perfect picture here. We got 4 in the backfield, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. All nice and clean, right lined up next to each other. Again, Alabama does a great job using a bunch of their formations. Everybody's top of mind right now with what's going on with them being the national championship. But right here, clean, easy way to see 7 people on the line of scrimmage, 4 in the backfield. Now let's get a little nuts. So this is really where the spread and some of these unbalanced formations, 0x4, 0x5 types of things start to get a little bit complicated. And again, this is the difference between the league and lower levels of football. In the league, you need 2 eligibles on each side of the formation. So you could never get away with this formation in the NFL. But again, college football, high school football, 0 by whatever formations are legal. And so this is where it starts getting a little confusing because, again, the only eligible receiver on the line of scrimmage is the most outside one. So if you have multiple eligible numbers on the same side on the line of scrimmage, the inside wide receiver, the one that is referred to as covered up, is not eligible. Okay, so one more time. 7 people on the line of scrimmage. The outside wide receivers or outside players, if they have eligible numbers, they are eligible. So in college, if you have someone who has a 50 to 79 number on the edge of a formation, they are not eligible. Where in the NFL, you can sometimes get away with this by having someone report as eligible. There's no reporting as eligible in high school or college football. You see the referee, I think the signal is something like this, blah, 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 checks in and is eligible. You see that all the time in the goal line jumbo packages in the NFL. I also think back to the rule change that the Patriots put on, I want to say the Ravens, a long time ago, a couple years ago, where they actually reported the opposite. They reported an eligible as ineligible, lined him up as a covered, basically, tackle, and took advantage of throwing it to an eligible tight end. So there's ways, obviously, shocker, who kind of took advantage of what the rules were written at the time. But again, in normal down and distance, non-NFL, the outside wide receiver can be an ineligible player. Not outside wide receiver. Outside player can be an ineligible player. Put stress on a defense to be able to identify that, know that they can't catch a ball down the field. Does it change any of their rules, especially if it's a man-to-man coverage call? What do all those stressors put on a defense? That's what these 0 by whatever formations cause and stress on a defense. So again, 7 people on the line of scrimmage. The only people that can be eligible are eligible numbers on the outside of the formation. Let's take a look. So here's Alabama running what I'm going to call a 0 by 4 into the boundary. So the short side of the field. So 5 offensive linemen. Looks like a tight end, wide receiver. 7 people on the line of scrimmage. Because that tight end up top is covered up, right? There's another player outside of him, ineligible. Cannot catch the ball. Cannot go downfield as an eligible receiver. So they're basically only have now 3 people in the backfield. Or they'll have 4 people in the backfield, but they're losing an eligible wide receiver down the field. So if this player was on the other side, he now would be an eligible receiver. But they put a lot of stress because they create extra gaps in the run game. They create a lot of stress. This is kind of like in the SEC, it's almost like dating your sister. They know every single thing. I don't have a sister, by the way. But the idea being that you know everything about your opponent. These guys all speak the same language as far as defense. And this idea being they know exactly what stresses out each other defensively with their rules. So they go 0 by whatever into the boundary. There's no eligible receivers. That's what the 0 means in the formation. And then we've got 4 technically eligible receivers. One of them is not eligible because of the formation here. So again, it could easily be, whether you refer to that as 0 by 4 or 0 by 5, whatever the normal eligibles are to determine what the formation is, this is where you start getting into serious gray semantics. It really doesn't matter. All you need to know is 7 people on the line of scrimmage. The only people that are eligible numbers on the outside of the formation. Same game, going different direction, same formation. Again, 7 people on the line of scrimmage. Should be easy to see right down the line. Covered up, eligible. There's no eligible to this side. 0 by 4 formation, or really 0 by 3, however you classify it. There's no eligibles over here. Still illegal formation, puts a lot of stress on a defense. Looks like a different shell than the last time we saw this look. So again, just knowing what a legal formation is, what an illegal formation is, 7 people on the line of scrimmage, but just because it's a legal formation doesn't mean that everybody's eligible. he's covered up. He has an eligible receiver outside of him. So again, just as a quick recap, again, you can get into a lot of detailed rules really quickly, but hopefully provided kind of a macro analysis of what a legal formation is. At the end of the day, 7 people on the line of scrimmage, 5 ineligible numbers, 50 to 79. They're usually together as offensive linemen. The outside wide receivers in the NFL must be eligible players. Other than that, you can have 4 maximum in the backfield. You can have more than 7 on the line of scrimmage. But at the end of the day, most formations, 90 plus in my very not rigorous study of football, have 7 people on the line of scrimmage, 5 ineligibles, offensive linemen. The outside wide receivers have eligible numbers and can go downfield to catch passes, but they don't have to. So they can be covered up if they're on the same side. That then creates a lot of stress on a defense, and that's when I start thinking you get into the 0 by whatever formations that are not necessarily in vogue across football right now, but I certainly feel like they're more prevalent than ever, and I do think that they put a lot of stress on a defense. So just being able to identify it, to see it, so the next time you watch a game, see if you can quickly identify where those kind of 0 by whatever formations are. You'll see a lot of them here as FCS football starts ramping up in the spring, but you won't see any in the NFL during these playoffs. So quick little recap of what an eligible formation is to then be able to better understand what an illegal formation is. So again, one more time for the people in the back. A legal formation, 7 people on the line of scrimmage, 5 people with ineligible numbers, 50 to 79. In the NFL, you must have eligible players on the ends of the formation. That's it. Maximum of 4 in the backfield, and you're good to go. Thanks so much for hanging to the end. I will see you next time. Have a good one.